Engagers, this is Professor Game, where we interview successful practitioners of games, gamification, and game thinking who bring us the best of their experiences to get ideas, insights, and inspiration to help us in the process of using games and gamification in our daily lives, for example, to learn what we are teaching. And I am Rob Alvarez. I work at IronHack, teach at IE Business School University, and so much more, and host this podcast. If you have an extra second, please go ahead and subscribe for free to our email list at professorgame.com/subscribe. Hey, Engagers, welcome back to another episode of the Professor Game podcast. And this week we have with us Marlene. Marlene, are you prepared to engage?
Yes, of course.
Marlene Sharp, I hope I pronounced your name correctly.
You did. You nailed it.
So she is a creative and business-savvy entertainment multi-hyphenate who is originally from New Orleans, but is now a San Fernando Valley girl. She's firmly ensconced. I'm not sure how to say that one.
That's it. Sorry. You did it. Ensconced.
Ensconced in LA life. Marlene is a top dog at the Pink Poodle Productions and the head of IP strategy and acquisitions for Rain Shine Entertainment. She's had all sorts of clients and collaborators, including BoardPanda.com, WeFixYourScript.com, Toonbow, Society Cabaret, Uramco Pictures, the Center for Learning Unlimited, Brainstorm Productions. And before doing these two things, she also served as a director at the executive level, 5 Abby Homo, Yokai Watch, and other Japanese hit video game-based franchises. So she has been into video games for quite a while. And when she was a producer of TV series at Sega of America, she worked on much more than the Teen Choice Award-nominated Cartoon Network series Sonic Boom. For example, her extensive Hedgehog duties took her to the heights of the nerddom as an official San Diego Comic-Con 2007 panelist. She was also consulted in the 2020 Sonic the Hedgehog feature film. Plenty of more. If you want to read the full jazz, you can find it on professorgame.com. You look for Marlene and you'll see that she has done things for GameDeveloper.com, DogTV.com, ToonBarn, Geekify.net, Culture Sonar, many, many more, and other interesting things. Marlene, is there anything we're leaving out that you want to make sure that our audience, the engagers, know about?
No, you need a break from that was quite a monologue I gave you. So no, yeah, that's quite thorough. Thank you.
Absolutely. So the first thing we always like to know of our guests is, what does a daily life for you look like? Daily, weekly, I don't know if even monthly. We just want to sort of get a feel of what being Marlene Sharp nowadays looks like.
Well, there is no regular day with Marlene Sharp. However, every day is spent with my dog, who is very close to demanding to being on this podcast. She's at my feet right now, wagging. Yes, she just did. Yes, Blanche, we're talking about you. So in that sense, ever since the pandemic started and it's been mostly at home, work at home 24/7. She's here. She's my co-conspirator, my collaborator, the chairwoman of the board for Pink Poodle Productions, my muse, everything. So that's the only regular part of the day, if you could call that regular. Otherwise, I have kind of a crazy schedule, made even more crazy by the pandemic. And I work with a lot of different clients. And one thing about the entertainment business is that you have to fly by the seat of your pants. And there's a lot of shifting priorities and, various other forces of nature that often interfere with the best laid plans. So I work with a lot of different types of people, types of entities. So there's no typical day.
That makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. So Marlene, let's go actually for one of our questions. And we always like to start sort of strong in that sense with these questions. And the first one is all about a failure. One of those times what we can call a first attempt in learning or fail moment where, you were going somewhere and things went the other way or something of that sort, especially, if it's in the entertainment, especially even more if it's in the game industry. That's where a lot of juice is going to be very, very deep for us. But again, it's your time, your story. So we just want to be sort of tag along with you.
Oh, sure. Well, I will tell you about a huge, enormous failure during the Sonic the Hedgehog 25th birthday party during Comic-Con 2016. So that's when I was working at Sega, obviously. And it was quite a tumultuous time for Sega of America because their office had been located in San Francisco Bay Area for about 30 years. And then in the middle of 2015, so 6 months before Sonic turned 25, they meaning Japan headquarters, laid everybody off in San Francisco,
Oh, wow.
about 100 employees, and then decided to move everything in the U.S., all the U.S.-based North American business to Los Angeles. Part of the reason for that was the development was heating up for the Sonic the Hedgehog movie. And then also there was work going on for season 1 of Sonic Boom Cartoon Network series. And so there was just a lot going on in LA, and they figured, why not save money? Believe it or not, Los Angeles is a less expensive city than San Francisco. And there was an extreme amount of perhaps displaced confidence that 14 of us in Los Angeles could do the work of 100 people in the Bay Area. So I was lucky enough to be hired in that group to launch the Burbank office. And we had Sonic's huge birthday coming up, the start of 2016, and there was nothing planned when all of us came aboard in the middle of 2015. So it was a mad scramble to put all this stuff together. And marquee event was supposed to be a live stream at Comic-Con 2016 in San Diego, which is a big, huge fan con, which your listeners might be aware of. A lot of gamers and people who are interested in the superhero franchises and so forth love to attend San Diego Comic-Con, although it's been dormant for the past couple of years, at least the in-person aspect of it. But we had this huge event that we were planning. We sold tickets. We booked the House of Blues in San Diego for the event. And we took a few trips down there to check out the venue. And we thought, prepare accordingly, but nothing really prepared us for what was going to happen on that fateful day. And one of the things that we did was a live stream. We launched our Twitch channel with that live stream from the House of Blues, which was essentially a 4-hour extravaganza of Sonic with live performances. Jun Sonoy, who came all the way from Tokyo, he's done a lot of music for the Sonic games through the years. He did a live performance. We had another group. Then we had actors from the TV show and the games did a staged reading, and then various other things happened on stage for 4 hours. So I was involved, as were everybody in our Burbank office. But the main thing that happened, we made a big deal about this. So it was very well attended virtually and in person. We had to turn people away from the House of Blues. If you didn't have a ticket, there was no way you could buy anything at the door. It was standing room only. And unfortunately, this was the early days of live streaming in 2016. And the House of Blues was just not compatible with the vendors that we hired to do the live stream. And so as a result, there were a lot of mistakes. The biggest one being a half an hour of a very loud beep that I mean, I'm not kidding you. It's like for half an hour, it was just beep. And the video went in and out, but it was really the excruciating part was the beep that permeated everything. And that was a big, huge talking point amongst all the fans in the chatter, the Twitch chatter during the live stream, and then afterwards online in all the fan forums and whatnot. So it was a blemish on the occasion of Sonic's birthday for sure. But in my mind, I come from the school of there's no such thing as bad publicity. So there was an overwhelming dialogue amongst fans about what happened. Was it a conspiracy to sabotage Sonic's birthday? And, who were these video engineers who messed it up and this, that, and the other? And one of the video team members took it upon himself to talk back to the fans, and that caused somewhat of an online fight. But the lesson is that it started and continued a dialogue that still goes on to this day. Like that 4-hour Sonic live stream is legendary. So I love to brag about it. And in fact, I was on a podcast a couple of years ago, and I had a kid interviewed me. She was probably about 14 or 15 at the time. And so I was doing my usual bragging, like, yes, I'm so proud that I was a part of Sonic's 25th birthday live stream, which launched the very successful Sonic Twitch channel. And it launched the Sonic live stream that still goes on today. It's on YouTube and Twitch and Facebook and blah, blah, blah. And this young lady interviewer said, wow, you are really brave to brag about that, because that was a disaster. And we ended up talking for about 45 minutes after the podcast was over, because she wanted to know all the behind the scenes of what happened, because she had been following the saga for several years. Anyway, that was a big failure, but I kind of think it's funny. And it's even funnier because I didn't get in trouble for it. If I would have lost my job over it, then there would have been no humor at all. But I think Sega of America did a really good job, especially the social media team, in taking lemons and making lemonade and really speaking to the fans' concerns and just engaging everybody and thanking everybody for tuning in. And it really was quite an extraordinary event. I mean, when you live stream something for 4 hours, you're bound to have some hiccups. And we kept going with this huge show that we had not rehearsed at all. And with all the technical stuff going on, I mean, even the Oscars are rehearsed, all those award shows. And we arrogantly thought that we could just breeze into the House of Blues and make a successful run of it. We're lucky that the whole thing didn't poop out. So anyway, there you go. That's a game. It's game adjacent, but it's a failure for sure.
And what would you take away from that? Like, what would be one or two things that you would say, well, we would do things very differently nowadays?
Oh, yeah. Well, first of all, it is essential, even though live streaming is much more sophisticated now than it was back then, it is essential to have a tech rehearsal. I come from the theater. And so in the theater, you have several dress rehearsals, and the tech rehearsal is something unto itself. Like, you don't even try to do the musical numbers or the dialogue or even the costume. Well, you might wear costumes just to see how they interact with the lights, but the tech rehearsal is all about lights and sound, and if there's any recording and all the electronic and the sets flying in and flying out and people hitting their cues, that is essential. And the tech rehearsal usually takes hours, sometimes days. It can be quite a marathon, and that's just in a regular production of like Oklahoma or Death of a Salesman or something like that. It's not like people reinventing the wheel. This goes back to my high school theater days, but I've done professional theater too. So we didn't do that. And that wasn't my decision. I don't want folks to think that I was the queen of this endeavor and I made all the decisions. And I made a lot of suggestions that were not heeded at all. And that was one of them, that we just didn't have the time and the money for a rehearsal. So it's like, okay, well, so definitely rehearsals are essential. Even if if it's not possible to get into a venue, you can still try to simulate it wherever you are, just try to at least run through the PowerPoint cues or, whatever you can. But we didn't do any of that. And we had a lot of tech things that, well, another thing was, this is an adjacent failure that happened. Someone broke into our office the night before we left for Comic-Con and stole 6 laptops from our office. And they were all laptops that were supposed to be going to Comic-Con for various things. And so that threw everybody off. It wasn't like the files were not recoverable, but it was something unexpected. So we did have that to deal with. So, I mean, I don't know how a person prevents those types of things from happening other than getting more security. One, yeah, that was definitely a force majeure. But yeah, I mean, preparation, I guess that's the whole point, is that preparation cannot be overstated. And even with preparation, things go wrong. But especially if you're doing a live show with a lot of tech and you're live streaming it and everything, as much preparation as you can do, I think, is important.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I take away from that is, like, especially when you have live things that are going to go on Engagers. I mean, that could be your class. That could be, if it's a marketing event, it's the event itself. There could be potentially so many things going on that preparing and making sure everything is as well as you can have it prepared is crucial. It's fundamental. I also teach operations, and one of the things that we always talk about is, no plan resists reality, but having a plan
yes, right,
is always better than not having it, because then you have, what happens if, and again, you need many times to improvise a bit, but you are better prepared to improvise if you are well prepared, right?
Absolutely. I agree.
So definitely take that into consideration. If there is tech of any sort involved, test it as much as you can. Again, it still might go awry. I mean, that thing just happens. I can tell you, there was this professor that I used to work with, and she was sort of scared of tech in general. But, all her fears came true a couple of times. But there was this one time where lights went out. It's like, this was a systems-based thing that was based on the internet, computers, Wi-Fi. If you have no electricity, you probably can't even teach the class in a regular building, right?
Right.
So, this was a trauma after, this happened. It's like, I can't use tech because, lights might go out. It's like, well, we're in Madrid. That doesn't tend to happen often or almost never, basically. But, again, there's some things, as you were saying, force majeure. I mean, sometimes it's just you can't do anything about it, but as best prepared as you can be, you will always be in a better position than if you had not prepared, rehearsed as much as you can. So Engagers, take that lesson home, definitely. And talking about the entertainment world, again, maybe you have games, if that is possible. Is there some sort of, not like the one that you bragged with that 14, 15-year-old, in which you ended up being, sort of a back and forth. But is there some sort of brag moment, something in the entertainment industry that you would like to sort of talk to us about and say, well, I think this was a success because, whatever that was, and we want to be there again with you?
Well, I'll go back to Sonic the Hedgehog because that was such an intense 2.5 years when I worked at Sega. And there are so many great stories from that time. But we were always working with very limited budget and schedules as a result. There were a lot of cost-cutting measures at Sega during that time. And so when we finished up the second season of Sonic Boom, the decision was made from Japan and then came down to us that we would not be continuing with the Cartoon Network show because it was too expensive and we weren't selling the products associated with Sonic Boom. So the games and the toys were not hugely popular. So Sega wanted to try something else. So what we did was develop a short form series, and we did a game associated with it called Sonic Mania. And we were very scrappy about it. It was very small budget. And we decided we were going to hire game developers as well as vendors to help with the short form YouTube series. Like in the Sonic fan community, there are a lot of people who create Sonic games and fan art, and they just put it up online for people to enjoy. So we assembled a team to make the game Sonic Mania as well as the short form series. And the head creative guy for the short form series is a gentleman named Tyson Hess, who is really a huge Sonic fan, but he's also worked on the Sonic comic books, and fans really know him because he's one of them. And so the shorts were very well received. I actually left Sega in the middle of that process, so I didn't get to see it through to the end, but I did get to work with Tyson a little bit. And the Sonic Mania adventures, the shorts, are, gosh, so many millions of views, and the design of Sonic, it harkened back to the classic Sonic of yore, the early days of Sonic. And so, so cut to a couple of years ago, again, I was not at Sega at the time that this happened, but the team that worked on the feature film, which was a lot of people outside of Sega and Sega of America, there were a lot of stakeholders, including Paramount Studios and Original Film, which is Neil Fast and Furious Moritz's company. And then Jeff Fowler, the director, worked at Blur Studios, which is the company owned by Tim Miller, who was the director of the first Deadpool movie and a star in his own right. All these people, all these stakeholders in the Sonic movie, they released a preliminary trailer of the movie, and the design of Sonic was underwhelming, would be an understatement. The fans actually
I remember that on the news for
exploded
sure.
with rage. Yes. And so again, I was not at Sega at this time, but I was watching the train wreck from my desk at Level 5, another Japanese video game company where I worked on the film and TV and social media stuff. And so what I found out later is that Tyson Hess, our very talented artist who did the designs of Sonic for Sonic Mania, he designed the characters that we had in our little shorts, the YouTube shorts. And, you know, he came from the comic book world. He was sent to London to work with this big fancy feature film team and teach them how to draw Sonic and how to make him in a way that does not alienate fans, you know, and get rid of his big scary teeth and whatever they put on him for the movie. And so Tyson, I mean, he turned that ship around. And actually, not only Tyson, but a huge amount of credit also goes to Aaron Weber, who was the head of social media for Sega of America at that time. Aaron really found Tyson. Well, Aaron was very plugged into all aspects of the Sonic world, and he knew Tyson because of his popularity with the fans. And so Aaron had brought Tyson to us to work with us on the Sonic shorts. And then Aaron became more involved with the film. And Aaron was the one who suggested, hey, why don't you send Tyson over there to London to work with the people designing Sonic for the movie? So that happened, and the movie came out, and now there are 2 sequels. The first sequel will be coming out imminently this year sometime. And then there was just another sequel. Movie number 3 was greenlit just last week. They made the announcement. So I forgot your your question was about a challenge and how it was solved or something like that.
There you go.
So I don't know if that was exactly a game-based solution, but it was a solution related to video games and game-based intellectual properties. So there you go.
Absolutely. As you can tell, Engagers, this is a little bit of a different episode. Marlene is a very special guest. We also like to get some insights into how this whole world is actually happening. Some ideas, some general, feelings of how that goes, especially what lessons can we take from that. And there you can see, both related to a very beloved game. Some people love it. Some people don't love it too much. I've definitely enjoyed Sonic the Hedgehog. I actually have there is a game that they created recently that is very, very nostalgic in that sense on Nintendo Switch. So I'm playing it. I'm enjoying it quite a bit. It looks very much like the original one, and it has a lot in common, in fact.
I think that's Sonic Mania. I think that's what you're referring to. Yep. Yeah. And it's amazing how cost-effective.
Fan built.
Yes, it was fan built and probably the most cost-effective endeavor that Sega had ever done with with developing and publishing a game. And yet it was so huge in sales and popularity and everything. And I think that really speaks to listening to the fandom and respecting them and incorporating their ideas and incorporating them in every way.
Certainly. Most absolutely, I would say. Incorporating, especially if you're thinking, as in game design, of course, when you're designing a game, you're designing it for somebody, for some players. If you already have a fan base, those are your players or a big, significant part of them. Listening to them, understanding them, creating for them is definitely a central endeavor that any game designer has to do at some point to understand better that fandom. And of course, if you have it there, and they're eager to participate, why not involve them as much as you can and maybe even be as cost effective as you were mentioning, for sure.
Yes, exactly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Marlene, you've kind of heard a little bit about this. I don't know if there's anybody that comes to your mind, somebody that you would say, well, this person related to, again, games or game design could be interesting for an interview in Professor Games. Is there somebody that comes to your mind that you know?
Oh, well, any of my former coworkers at Sega, I think, would be fantastic guests. And also, I'm thinking of some folks that I know who are fans, but they create outstanding games just because they love the games, and then they make them available for people to play for free online. And I've never heard an interview with somebody like that who just does it purely for the love of it. And I would love to get into their brain and find out, because to me, making a game, that's work. That's not funsies on the weekend. That is programming and math and art. I mean, it's a huge undertaking. And for somebody to put so much of themselves into an endeavor like that and then just offer it up for free, it's extraordinary. So I'd love to hear an interview with somebody like that to find out, behind the scenes of that process.
Cool. If later on you have any suggestions, that would be absolutely fantastic.
Oh, yeah. Yes, I will. I will make those suggestions.
And Marlene, talking about, superpowers like those of Sonic the Hedgehog, what would you say is your superpower in this industry? What's that thing that you do better, at least than most other people?
Well, I call myself a busybody because I'm always into other people's business. So you could look at it as a strength and a weakness, I guess, depending on the day of the week, depending on how my intrusion is welcomed or not. But I am really curious about what other people are doing, and I love to meet new people, and I love to do matchmaking too. I feel like I'm much better at finding jobs for other people than I am for myself, and finding opportunities. Just like all that's, I'm really good at promoting other people. So I guess matchmaking, that type of thing. I don't know if that there's an actual word for it. What I do, curiosity, maybe. Somebody compared me to the description of a maven in Malcolm Gladwell's books about connectors and things like that. So yeah, I guess that's one of my superpowers. Yeah, matchmaking. Yeah, there you go. Business matchmaking.
Certainly. So, Marlene, thank you very much for investing this time today in The Engagers. I know, again, it's a little bit of a different audience perhaps to what you typically do, but we did want to get those insights into the entertainment industry, into especially Sony, the Hedgehog, Sega of America. So much experience that you have there. But, as everything, time is limited. So before you get going, before you take off, are there any final piece of advice, any words you want to give the audience? Of course, where can we find out more about your work before we say that, at least for now, it's game over?
Oh, sure. Well, you can find me on my website, which is pinkpoodleproductions.com. And also you can write to me, Marlene at pinkpoodleproductions.com. And I'm pretty active on social media, but definitely LinkedIn is the preferred social platform for me. I am a maniac on LinkedIn. So you can find me there. Rob, I believe we're already linked. So that's good. And I hope to link with many more people, many more of your audience members through there. But I'm also on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and
all the jazz.
All that jazz.
For sure. I'll be linking all these things through professorgame.com. If you look for Marlene, you'll definitely find all of those contact details. Marlene, thank you very much once again for dedicating this time, for investing this time in the Engagers. However, at least for now and for today, it is time to say that it's game over. Hey, Engagers, thank you for listening to the Professor Game podcast. And I'd like to know if you have any questions that you would like to know from future guests. If you do, please go to professorgame.com/question and ask your question. If it comes up in a future episode, you will get your answer live by one of our future guests. And remember, before you go on to your next mission, subscribe or follow, whatever that looks like on your favorite podcast app, so that you can listen to the next episode of Professor Game. See you there.